Of all the frivolous celebrity bullshit we hear on a daily basis, I did not think that a bunch of randos going into space would be trying to defend anything that they did as revolutionary when really it's just tourism. Hey y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. So about a week ago, I heard that there was going to be this all-female trip into space, and I thought, wow, how cool, how interesting to have a group of female astronauts, women revolutionizing space and travel, presumably doing some sort of important research, things to better humanity. And then I actually saw who it was that went on this space journey. So it was not some interesting NASA thing meant for the betterment of humanity. It was Blue Origin, which is space tourism, basically. And this supposedly revolutionary, iconic, amazing, never before seen, all-female crew was actually not a group of very well-trained, educated astronauts. Rather, it was two scientists who nobody cares to remember their names because the other three women were the fiance of Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey's best friend Gayle King, and Katy Perry. The point here is that calling this a crew, or implying that this is some revolutionary, big, glass ceiling breaking win for women, is basically complete bullshit. And a lot of people are actually commenting on this. You have other celebrities, you have models, basically people that are just as vapid as half of this crew essentially are calling this out for the bullshit that it is. But let's really break this down. And I know that I don't really talk about this sort of shit on this channel, but I couldn't leave this alone, and this is halfway pop culture, right? So let's take a look at who went on this flight. There was, in fact, a rocket scientist by the name of Aisha Bowe. There was bioastronautics research scientist Amanda Nguyen, and I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation, I'm so sorry. So those two names you've probably never heard, especially not in talking about this iconic, incredible girl-bossed flight, because, you know, they're the only two people qualified to be in space that could potentially contribute anything to the advancement of the human exploration of space. And then the other names that I'm honestly tired of hearing about at this point were film producer Carrie Ann Flynn, Gayle King, the iconic, now irrelevant for the past like 12 years, Katy Perry, and of course, Lauren Sanchez, who is the fiance to Jeff Bezos, who owns Blue Origin. But surely this trip had to have done something important for society and the world at large, right? Well, this voyage lasted 11 minutes. I know some people are gonna disagree with me here, but 11 minutes really isn't that long, and you really can't accomplish that much in 11 minutes. I mean, granted, it also depends who's working with those 11 minutes, but based on what we saw of this flight, it seems like all they did was float around. Katy Perry held a flower. Supposedly she sang while she was in space, which had I been aboard that vessel, had I been one of the chosen few revolutionary women, I probably would have just jumped out and let the void of space either suck me in and destroy me, or just begun my descent to Earth at terminal velocity and probably caught fire on the way down. You know, either way, there are many options. But if Katy Perry started singing and I was trapped in the vacuum of space, you better believe I'd find a way to end it. Okay, so it doesn't seem like we sent anybody super productive into space for this. Was this like carbon emission free or no? Okay, there was in fact, yeah, that makes sense. So what exactly about this was good then? Can anybody enlighten me? Or, I mean, how do you get on board one of these things, right? Well, apparently you can put down a deposit of $150,000 and you and I lowly peons that don't make enough money to go into space for 10 minutes really wouldn't know, but it's estimated that this flight costs anywhere between $1 million to $2 million. We don't know who paid to be on this flight and who went up for free. I'm assuming the two scientists that probably don't make millions of dollars for singing or talking shit on TV or producing movies that nobody cares about, or, you know, date billionaires. I'm sure they probably didn't have to pay that money and they threw them on so that we would have somebody relevant, and the other ones probably did pay their fare, unless they thought Katy Perry was talented enough to send into space, or maybe they were hoping the unit wouldn't come back and we'd never have to hear another or fireworks ever again. So the funny thing is that if we really look at this, it's space tourism. I mean, the fact that they're trying to sell it as some revolutionary thing is fucking hilarious. And the fact that they're trying to put a female spin on it and be like, yeah, first all-female flight crew. It's not a flight crew. That's like I'm calling myself the flight crew because I went on Soarin' at Epcot at Disney World. Did you know I'm also a paranormal investigator because I've been on the Haunted Mansion at Disney World approximately 6 times? Did you know that I was once shrunken down to the size of a toy and I got to ride Slinky in Andy's backyard at Hollywood Studios in Disney World? Or the fact that I actually escaped the curse of the mummy at Universal Studios? Quite frankly, the fact that none of you identify me as the dinosaur expert that I am. I've been on every Jurassic Park ride at Islands of Adventure. Where are my accolades and my royalties for being part of the original Peanuts gang? I rode the rides at Camp Snoopy in Knott's Berry Farm in California. If they can call themselves a flight crew for sitting on a ship that went to space for 11 minutes and floated around while they contributed nothing, then I'm going to start calling myself whatever the I want for whatever theme park I've been to. It's the same kind of shit. And Gayle King has the balls to be salty that anybody is calling her out on this. In fact, I want to read you part of her statements on this. Space is not an either or, it's a both and. And because you do something in space doesn't mean you're taking anything away from Earth. And what you're doing in space is trying to make things better here on Earth. You ladies floating around while Katy Perry held up a flower and smiled with a face that says I'm on ecstasy into a camera means that you did something for everybody here on Earth? Okay. There was nothing frivolous about what we do. What you do? You went to space one time. Get the f*** out of here. So, you know, I'm very disappointed and very saddened by the criticism. And I also say this. What it's doing to inspire other women and young girls, please don't ignore that. To be completely honest, the only thing that I got from this is if I marry a billionaire, I might one day get to go to space. That is the only thing. Because again, none of these women, except for the 2 that nobody's talking about, went to space because they have to do with space. These other 4, why? Men too that say, wow, I never thought I could do that, but I see you doing it at this stage of your life. Again, making an 11-minute trip to space that probably cost upwards of $1 million to $2 million. The normal people can't afford that. That's the amazing part, is these people are so detached from reality. Gayle King is literally out there going, go to space.
And then my question is, have y'all been to space? Have you been to space? Go to space or go to Blue Origin and see what they do and how they do, and then come back and say, this is a terrible thing.
Maybe if I had $1.5 million or 2 or whatever the maybe if I was with Jeff Bezos, I could take my fat ass to space, but I can't take my fat ass to space because I don't make that kind of money. And last time I checked, I never studied space. I've always had the theory that I think you either are a person that's really interested in the ocean or you're really interested in space. You kind of lean one way or the other. I'm one of the ocean people, but from childhood, I remember hearing people talk about going to space, being astronauts. So many little kids when I was in kindergarten wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I'm disturbed by animals dying. The whole point is that I would hear people talking about space the entirety of my life. I knew people that wanted to be astronauts. And I sat there one time and I addressed it and I said, I don't think that I personally would benefit or anybody on the f***ing planet would benefit from SnarkyJay going to f***ing space. Like, I don't think I could contribute anything. I don't think it could contribute anything to me. So quite frankly, maybe space isn't for all of us. And I think that space is not for Gayle King. If you're gonna come back from space and just be pissed that everybody says that what you did was a waste of time, money, carbon emissions, all sorts of things, which is exactly what it was. If you're gonna be that offended, and I mean, look, they're really hoping to say that, well, they're going up there to figure out how to make the world a better place, and Jeff Bezos is doing so much for the planet. Yeah. Like creating a lot of trash and waste and not really treating employees with much fairness or respect at all. So that's really interesting that we're so focused on sending assholes to space. And yet, you know, we're all here on Earth. Maybe put that money towards, I don't know, better working conditions for Amazon employees or finding more ways to offset all of the damage that Amazon and its operations are doing to the entire world, you know, and carbon emissions and damage to the environment, all that sort of thing. I mean, if we want to get real worldly about it, save the world, all that kind of then maybe focus on the Earth and not sending celebrities to space. Anyway, I just think this whole thing is some of the biggest bunch of bullshit on the planet, and it's one of those arguments that I really can't stand because they're trying to prop up the fact that this was an all-female thing, when to me, it feels like the antithesis of feminism. Had Jeff Bezos said, you know what, I'm gonna send 5 or 6 of these female scientists, these astrophysicists, bio whatevers, and I'm gonna put them in space and they're gonna experience this thing that they've been studying for years, that they've devoted their life to, that would be fantastic. That is an all-female flight crew. To claim that this incredibly vapid trip was any sort of victory for women, to me, is absolutely shameful. If you actually cared about the advancement of women in science, STEM, tech, whatever, you would actually send people who were qualified and not just people who are trying to be the flavor of the week. Anyway, this all sounds like a tremendous waste of money, effort, time, resources, scientific research, and publicity. But hey, what do I know? I've never been to space. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. I'll add links to all of those in the description below. And let me know your thoughts on the all-female Blue Origin space mission in the comments below.